Mina stared through the glass, the swirling lights of the drift outside the ship casting dancing patterns across the surface of Subject 42's container. Its scale-covered humanoid body swam through the water with ease, stalking the unsuspecting fish recently dropped in through the feeding hatch. Suddenly, several long tongues shot from its mouth, snaring its prey and reeling it in. Mina turned away to survey the rest of the lab. Rows and rows of cylindrical glass containers filled the space, holding previous iterations. Subject 4's large, bulbous eyes, Subject 17 with its mass of swarming tentacles, Subject 23 and its multiple heads and razor-sharp teeth. Two figures in white hazmat suits approached her. 43, place your arm into the sample tube. My name is Mina, she growled, clenching her own scale-covered hands tightly. Interesting, one of the figures said. Subject 43 continues to persist with its delusions of identity. We will need to address that in Subject 44. There would be no Subject 44. When the ship dropped out of the drift, Mina would free herself, along with all her genetic predecessors, and show these people exactly what they had created. Hello, and welcome to The Bad Spot, an actual play podcast in which I, Matt Risby, and I alone, am playing through Ironsworn Starforged. I hope you enjoyed the Tale from the Drift that opened up this episode. That was a submission from user Topher89, and I absolutely love what he's done with the prompts he has rolled up, so I want to thank him for writing such a cool piece of flash fiction for me to read. If you want to write something to open up a future episode, then these are the parameters. I keep asking people to get in touch to find these out, but I may as well just tell you all now. Tales from the Drift are 200 words or less and use prompts generated from 3 rolls on any oracles you like. If you feel inspired to roll and write something, then get in touch via the details that are on the screen now. And whilst I have you, why don't you leave a like, subscribe, and click that bell icon so you can follow along with the campaign each and every week. Last time out, Archer, Luna, and Griff were engaged in a desperate dogfight with 2 Clan Thorn snub fighters. Completely ill-equipped for such a combat, they had to rely on the volcanic environment and deployment of their defensive countermeasures to escape by the skin of their teeth. As they jumped into the drift, we cut away from our heroes and returned to the planet's surface. As Clan Thorn pick over the battlefield and find the Iron Gate that Blake Sutton had discovered, we meet Azrael Vega, the leader of Clan Thorn, who appears to have powerful mystical abilities, which he uses to resurrect and then mind control the guard Archer left for dead. So, that was a pretty big reveal at the conclusion of last week's episode, and our first brush with actual magic in this universe. Now, we established in the truths that I laid out in session 0, the dice told us, because remember I rolled them up randomly, that magic was very real. And I went on to flesh that out by saying that people who could wield mystical power were very dangerous. And that's mainly because harnessing that power is very difficult and nearly impossible to control. So this Azrael Vega character might be, and this might just be a sneaking suspicion, might be bad news. But this is the first time in this story that, as an audience, we know this. And we know this, and Archer does not. So that's something that, firstly, I need to remember. And secondly, I feel like I could have quite a lot of fun with this. And I just want to kind of at this point kind of start a sidebar, because I thought this would be interesting for anyone who kind of wants a glimpse behind the curtain of kind of how this show is made. But the last 2 episodes have required me to go back and re-listen to some of the Session Zero. And remember when I did the top tips episode with Steve Morrison of the Errant Adventures podcast, I said that it's important from time to time to go back and check in on your truths to make sure you're still being kind of like true to those foundations of your story. And I do recommend doing that. That's why I gave it as a tip. But going back and re-listening to some of that, I'm really fascinated by where we've ended up. And I actually say at one point in that Session Zero that an ongoing kind of storyline involving warfare was something that just was not interesting to me at all. And remember, I rolled these up randomly. I was kind of saddled with these things as fate decided with them with the dice. I said I wasn't into it, but here we are. Here we are with the main storyline of this show being Archer Barlow being very much embroiled in the centre of a clan war. And I kind of love it. I didn't have too many assumptions on where this story would go or where this story would end up. But there was this kind of idea in my head that I had that Archer would be kind of like this lone character out on his own, and the story would be very small, that he would perhaps just kind of go from community to community as he kind of helped them in small quests, like this kind of like wandering Ronin of sorts. And, you know, he was just trying to find clues to the whereabouts of the professor. But now I can't think of him without Luna. And remember that Luna was just a random NPC I rolled up to get some information when I was stuck in a bar on a planet that I'd randomly landed on. And, you know, I'm surprised that I'm enjoying this kind of expansive clan war storyline. And the weird thing is you can trace that entire storyline back to one role. And that's in episode 1. And all we're trying to do is interpret a prompt. And in this case, the prompt was one word, and that word was creation. And all I was trying to do was figure out what the MacGuffin was that Archer was chasing, what he was looking for in the jungle. And from that, we've used this system to create this rich, deep storyline from basically nothing. Now, in this case, just one word. And I just kind of wanted to kind of reiterate just how much fun this has been to do. And from here, I have no idea where this is going. I have one thing from the Session Zero about one of the planets that we've rolled up that we've not been to yet, that I kind of have an idea for, but that is it. I have nothing pre-established in terms of ideas for anything going forward in this story. So Eddie, that was just a little aside about how much fun I'm having, and I hope that's coming across. And I want to know what you're enjoying too. Is there anything from this game that you want to see me do that you've not seen yet? Maybe you've had a look at the preview edition and there's some mechanics you want to see me explore. Please let me know either way in the comments below, whether you're enjoying it, whether there's anything you want to see, or, you know, whether you're just happy for me to go with the flow. So, speaking of going with the flow, let's actually play this game this week. So where were we? We left Archer and Luna in the drift. And I don't know where they're going because we didn't make a move. But I think something first, before we get right into the actual gameplay, there's something that I want to do here that I've been meaning to do for some time actually, but I keep forgetting, and I'm not going to forget again. What we're going to do is I want to update our sector map. Here it is. This is the Corvus Breach with the 3 settlements we generated during the Session Zero. We have Damu over here, which is the jungle planet on which we started, that held the Pilgrim's holy site of redemption. From there, we went to the deep space salvage station of Concord, which is where we came face to face with the Conduit. And then up here, we have the settlement of Sepulchre, which orbits the ice planet of Varnholm. Now, we haven't been here yet, but something tells me we might at some point. But anyway, before we do any more speculation, let's update the map. So from Concord, we jumped through the drift until we found the moon of Rust. And Rust orbits an unnamed, uninhabitable desert world. Rust is where we met Luna in the midst of a union dispute. And that moon of Rust is a manufacturing plant for E-drives that was under the control of a criminal syndicate. From there, we jumped until we reached the Griffin Institute derelict, which was in the orbit of an unnamed grave world. And then from here, we headed to the furthest corner of the breach, to the unnamed Furnace World, where we've just been, where we found Blake Sutton and the Iron Gate, and the fortress of Paxton Hold. So, with that little bit of detail sketched in, I think we can maybe ascertain where we're going. And I think we need to find a safe haven somewhere. And those words safe haven do not apply to anywhere we've been so far. We need to find a nice little spot somewhere we can recover, maybe sojourn, maybe fix up the ship, resupply. Because let's not forget that even though Luna stabilized Archer, he is in very, very bad health. We've actually only got 3 health. We're at 1 spirit and 1 supply, and our momentum is, it's 3. That's no great shakes either. That's not really going to be of much use to anyone. So, yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to find a safe haven. So, we're mid-move. Narratively, we ended the last episode jumping to escape, but we didn't make a move at the time because we were so caught up in the drama of it all. So, let's make that move now. And we're not going anywhere we've been before because, like I said, I don't think any of these places are going to be safe for us. And most likely there'll be people looking for us. We did establish that news and information travels very slowly in the Outlands, but we've been causing trouble everywhere we've been. So even if the news of our latest exploits haven't quite leaked out yet, I'm pretty sure some of our earlier trouble will have become public knowledge. So, for this move, if we're not going somewhere we've been before, we're going to be making the move undertake an expedition. And we're going to be heading off in this direction over here, trying to find a safe spot to lay low for a while. Now, we know from the fragment of the network map that we've got that there is another Iron Gate nearby. But we're in kind of no fit state to go chasing after that right now, especially if there is a chance that Blake Sutton might also be going for it. So for now, we just need some R&R. So what we're going to do is we're going to give this expedition a name and a rank. The name is going to be Find a Safe Haven. And rank-wise, I want to make this just the easiest, straightforward, which is troublesome, because I don't want to spend 3 weeks trying to find a port in a storm. It could be interesting, but it probably won't be. So what we're going to do is make it troublesome, try and keep it short. So let's envision this. So Archer and Luna sit silently, wordlessly in the Eclipse cockpit. They are both shattered, totally exhausted. Luna is fried from the dogfight and also kind of stunned, to be honest, about how they managed to get out of it alive. And she looks over at Archer, and he is kind of almost completely crashed. He's like barely conscious. His face is battered and bruised. His hair is matted with grey ash and mud. She has no idea what the time that he spent in that room with the gate did to him, but it kind of seems different to her somehow. I mean, he's in bad shape, but there's just something about him that's different. But then maybe he is just scrambled from the chase. Maybe she's just scrambled. Maybe she can't tell. She doesn't know. But what she does know, and what she realized, is that she needs Archer as much as he needs her. Had she not come for him, had she not rescued him, he would have died back there, back in Paxton Hold. And there's no way that they would have been able to get away from those fighters in what was basically just a flying science lab. That was all Archer's ingenuity and quick thinking. She would have tried to kind of fight them. She would have tried to go toe to toe with them, and she knows deep down that that would have got them all killed. So they kind of need each other. She's grateful that they're out of there. She's grateful that they're off that planet. But she stares out of the cockpit, and she has no idea what awaits them when they drop out of the drift, what new dangers they could face, or who could have caught up with them. Archer is completely spent. The adrenaline, both real from the dogfight and artificial that Luna pumped into him, is starting to fade. He feels weak, broken. He has no strength left. It took everything he had to pilot out of that pursuit, and all he knows is he's got nothing left in the tank. They need to get somewhere safe, but where? They're out here launching themselves into the drift, hoping for the best. And at this point, that is actually their best option, because nowhere is safe for them. Things have spiraled out of control from the second he accepted that job from the conduit. And Archer is ill-suited to cope with the chaos that's unfolding around him. But Luna, who is, may I remind you, also responsible for a good deal of that chaos, She is resilient and tough and smart, and he needs her. He's not going to get through this on his own. The eclipse is still flying, and he has Luna with him, and he knows that he'd be dead 2 or 3 times over if it wasn't for her. And also, they've got Griff. And Griff is still kind of useless, but he kind of came good when Archer needed him last time. And they've got a mountain to climb. The iron vow that Archer swore to reach the mystical superweapon before the clans do seems at this point impossible. But he has help. He has this little family unit around him. It's not a lot, but it is something. And something is better than nothing. He looks at the readout on his console, and he can barely remember what he punched into the E-drive. But he was certain it would at least get them out of immediate danger. And it won't be long until they drop out of the drift. So let's make this move. The move is undertake an expedition, and I think that in keeping with the pursuit that was kind of frantic, that pursuit that we just escaped, I think this is going to be rolling plus edge, because we're definitely moving with speed. We didn't have too long to think about it. We just got out of there. Now that may change for the next sections of this expedition, but for now we just want to get away, move quickly, rolling plus edge. Okay, that is a weak hit. So on a weak hit we reach a waypoint. We envision the location and mark progress, but this progress also costs us. So we need to either make a suffer move or face a peril at the waypoint. So first we'll mark progress, and this is troublesome, so we're going to fill in 3 boxes each time we mark progress, so we're up to 3 out of 10. So what can be our complication? Do we roll up a peril, or do we make a suffer move? No, it's not just one suffer move. It's either 1 suffer move at -2 or 2 suffer moves at -1. So we don't have a lot to play with in terms of suffer moves. We're in bad shape. But I actually think if we want to keep moving quickly, that is probably our best option. And I think that maybe what we can say is, because we just punched in the coordinates quickly, Archer didn't really consider the length of this jump. And I think that this jump has burned out the E-drive more than it usually would. So we have to wait longer for it to recharge. And I think that mechanically we'll reflect that by having a loss of momentum. So we're going to go down from 3 to 2. And 2 is our reset value. So we're basically at nothing. And the other suffer move we're going to make, because we've got to make 2, is going to be withstand damage. I think it's fair to say that we may well have pushed the Eclipse to its limits. It is not a very manoeuvrable ship or particularly nimble or agile. And we've been shot at and smashed into rocks and blasted with volcanic steam and whatnot. And I think that it might be struggling. So let's take a hit to the ship's integrity. So that'll bump down to 3 out of 5. But I'm going to try and resist this. This old girl is built to last. And I have every faith that she'll hold together somehow. So I'm going to try and resist this. So rolling plus integrity, which is currently 3. It's a strong hit. So on a strong hit, I can bypass the damage or ride it out and take momentum. I actually think I'm going to take the momentum back. Yeah, I think I'm going to take the momentum back. That seems like a better use of the strong hit. So, the red and orange of the drift begins to fade. And the Eclipse comes rattling to a sudden halt in the middle of a glistening starfield. Archer and Luna are both kind of gripping the controls in the consoles, almost like they're manually holding everything in place and kind of trying to keep the ship together. And they both check the scanners and also try and kind of get visuals on any immediate threats. But they seem to be safe. There's nothing. I mean, there can't be literally nothing because that would be very boring. Let's see what we can see. Let's ask the Oracle. What do we see as we drop into this otherwise empty pocket of deep space? 69 is a debris field creature boneyard. I like that. Okay, creature boneyard. So let's envision it. Archer kind of sits back in his chair and he kind of lets out this huge sigh of relief. The ship very nearly didn't make it, but they are safe. And that's when Luna, who is kind of pressed very nearly right up against the glass, steps back with a jolt and says, "What the fuck is that?" And they both watch as a long, sleek, eel-like creature kind of slowly snakes past the viewport. And its body doesn't have a head at the end. It's just this kind of maw, just this set of gums and teeth on a long black-grey muscle. And they watch it kind of glide harmlessly by them, and they kind of follow it as it joins 1, 2, 3, then dozens more. And these creatures are feasting on the marrow of the giant skeletal remains of some unfortunate creature that is hanging in space off to the port side. Whatever it was or whatever it used to be, it was definitely big. And it's hard to tell, but I think it looks like there was a few of these things, and they're all being completely picked clean by these kind of deep space scavengers. They're like kind of lamprey eels, if you've ever seen one of those. It's hard to gauge what these mighty beasts may have looked like before, because for now we can only see kind of patches of bone, and that's all that's visible amongst this kind of writhing mass of these parasitic creatures. And Archer looks at it and says, "Yeah, that doesn't feel like a good omen." And the two of them have kind of little choice but to kind of sit and watch the creatures feast as the E-drive recharges. But I think what Archer would do, what he probably would do here, is maybe try and do something to ensure that the next jump might be a bit more accurate, perhaps. Like, we're out here in uncharted space. And when we say uncharted, that means that people may well have been here before, or they have even settled out here. But what there isn't is any known routes to follow. There's nothing mapped out. So what I think that Archer is going to do is he's going to kind of study that part of the Iron Gate network map that he found on Paxton Hold. And I think he's going to try and use it to plan this next jump a bit more accurately. And I think that maybe on the map there is, some places he kind of knows where they are, and he can kind of infer what kind of direction might be safer to head in. Maybe there's a spot named on the map, and he thinks that might be a planet or a settlement, and that's what he's going to kind of try and aim for. And I think we're going to reflect this mechanically by making the move secure an advantage. So this move says that when we assess a situation or make preparations or attempt to gain leverage, we envision our action and roll. And we have some options here. But I think the most obvious one is that we are relying on our expertise and our observation to interpret this map. So in that case, we're going to be rolling plus wits. We are using our brains. We're going to be more Barlow. So let's try and secure an advantage rolling plus wits. Well, that's a miss. So that hasn't helped at all. Not ideal. On a miss, your assumptions betray you. Pay the price. So when you pay the price, the first thing you do is apply the most obvious negative outcome. And I don't really think there is one here. So what we'll do is we'll roll on the pay the price table. But why could our assumptions have betrayed us? What could that mean? I think it's fair to say that Archer is really kind of not with it. He is way more shaken than he even perhaps feels. His mind is totally frazzled, and his analytical functions, on which he would normally rely, are kind of all over the place. They're shot to pieces. And I think that he's looking at this map and he's trying to concentrate, and he's trying to punch in details on the E-drive, and it all just keeps going a bit hazy. And then after a while he hears Luna say, "Archer." And he looks up at her, and she has that concerned look on her face again. And she continues, "Come on. You've been looking at that thing for hours." And I think that's when he realizes that he's been slipping in and out of consciousness this whole time, looking at the map. And he's just been kind of typing nonsense into the E-drive. He's just in no fit state to try and use anything other than his kind of like basic motor functions here. He can barely keep it together. And Luna says, "We're charged. Let's just go." And she kind of helps him up and kind of over and into the pilot's seat. And we still need to pay the price, don't we? So let's not forget to do that. So what we'll do is we will roll on the pay the price table. Let's see what price we shall pay. 65 is your vehicle suffers damage. That's no good, is it? Not at all. Okay, so let's just say, let's say that they have been sat there for so long that maybe some of those kind of parasitic space eels have kind of drifted over to the Eclipse and kind of maybe mistaking it for the kind of corpse of some other creature. They kind of started clamping their jaws onto its hull, and within a few minutes the Eclipse is kind of teeming with these things, and I think they've done some damage, and I think that maybe they've chewed through some of the external fixtures, and I think it's fair to say that we'll drop our integrity once again. So that goes down to 2. And I think it's funny that the Eclipse only got a stat line last episode, and it's very nearly fallen apart already. So yeah, that's my bad. Yeah, not ideal. Okay, so I think if they stay out here much longer, they're going to be worm food. So Archer kind of punches his best guess where they're going into the E-drive and plunges down the handle, and the creatures slowly begin to peel off the hull as the Eclipse is cloaked in wisps of red and purple, and then lunges forward through space into the drift. So I think that even though we don't know where we're going exactly, we're not escaping here. We're not moving at pace. We're not kind of desperately fleeing like we were before. So I think when we undertake an expedition again here, I think that we have the choice to either proceed by staying vigilant or by trying to kind of be stealthy and fly under the radar. And I think that we're going to stay vigilant here. I think that that is probably the most appropriate because we don't know where we're jumping to, but Archer has kind of done his best to kind of err on the side of caution. So let's say that we are staying vigilant and we will undertake an expedition rolling plus wits. A strong hit. Marvellous. It feels like we needed that. So we reach a waypoint, envision the location, and mark progress. So progress-wise, that puts us up to 6 out of 10. That is a tempting little number, isn't it? Because we're in bad shape. And risking another jump could end up with us further away from where we need to be. But is it as risky as rolling against 6 progress to try and end the expedition? And I feel like when you end the expedition, you kind of really need a strong hit. So, yeah, I think I'm not going to chance it. So let's just envision what we find first at this waypoint. And once again, I will ask the Oracle to see what sight greets us as we drop. 8. 8 is a stellar object. Ooh. I don't think we've had one of those before. Right, let's ask the Oracle once again what this stellar object is. 49 is a blazing blue star. A blue star. Is that a real thing? Or is that a Starforged thing? Okay, let me look that up. Okay, that is totally a real thing. The internet says, the colour of a star comes from its temperature. The coolest stars appear red, whilst the hottest stars are blue, and for a star, the only thing that defines the temperature of a star is its mass. Blue stars are stars that have at least 3 times the mass of our sun. So, this is a big boy. A super hot big boy. Okay, so the eclipse drops out of the drift, and the red and purple ribbons of the jump are instantly replaced as they are bathed in this cool, pale blue light. As far in the distance, there hangs a brilliant blue sun, wreathed in fiery blue mist. And it's a beguiling sight. And Luna, who recently had never been off the moon of Rust, finds herself once again pressed up against the glass of the cockpit. And she says, "It's beautiful." And Archer says, "It sure is." And she watches it. She's kind of like enchanted by it, this glowing celestial giant. And for someone who couldn't imagine a future beyond Rust's grim factories, this is like a soul-enriching moment. And she's lost in that moment for some time. And what I think we're going to do is I think we're going to take this opportunity to try and make a move. And I think what we're going to try and do is hearten. Because looking at the move, this feels very much like Archer and Luna are sharing a quiet moment of peace. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this part of the narrative to make the mechanical move of heartening, rolling, plus heart. A weak hit. Okay, so you find companionship and your spirit is strengthened. Take +2 spirit. That's quite nice. We're up to 3 now. But as this was a weak hit, it says, the indulgence is fleeting. Envision an interruption, complication, or inner conflict and lose momentum. So momentum goes back down to 2, and we can't seem to catch a break with regards to momentum. We are really running on fumes here. So what is the interruption? Maybe inner conflict. I think that both Archer and Luna are caught up in this moment, and it kind of enriches them. But after a while, there's this sense that the sense of wonder that they're feeling is replaced in kind of both of them by this nagging sense of having wasted some time. I think Archer is kind of reminded of the size of the task that's at hand, and Luna is kind of maybe racked with guilt at those people she left behind. And she's out here kind of taking in this celestial wonder, whilst those less fortunate are still breaking their backs on the production lines. And I think they kind of both almost simultaneously realize this and kind of deflate nearly and settle back in to get moving again. So I think that Archer is kind of fairly confident the next jump will have some kind of settlement nearby. He's fairly sure this is the case. So I think he turns on some kind of transmitter scrambler or some kind of tech that will make them harder to detect when they drop out of the drift. So I think that by doing that, we can say that we're going to undertake an expedition and roll plus shadow to try and do things more surreptitiously and fly under the radar. Okay, a strong hit. Strong hit. So we reach another waypoint and we can mark progress. So we're up to 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll 2 moves into 1. I think I'm going to try and finish the expedition here, and then I'll complete that last move and envision what we find in one go. So let's make a progress move. We're going to finish the expedition and we're rolling against our progress. So we're at 9. I feel pretty good about this. So a strong hit. Strong hit. So you reach your destination. Mark a reward on your Discovery's legacy track as per the expedition's rank. So it's 1 tick because it's a troublesome rank, but our Explorer asset allows us to mark 1 extra tick on the Discovery's track. So we're going to fill this box completely up. And we now have 3 full boxes, which gives us some more XP to spend. And that is 4 in total that we have burning a hole in our pocket. It's 2 to upgrade an asset, remember, and 3 to get a new one. But anyway, that is for another time. Right now, we have come to our destination. It's somewhere that Archer is hoping will be good to lay low. He knows that there is a settlement out here somewhere, and whilst he has found it hard to narrow down, this is it. So, where are we? We're going to find a settlement, because that's what we've been looking for, and it's what we need. So, let's roll one up. Firstly, what kind of settlement is this? 41 is orbital. It's an orbital settlement. And if it's orbiting something, it's orbiting a planet. So what kind of planet is it orbiting? 72 is an ocean world. And the orbital settlement itself, what's its population? 15 is few. Okay, few. So this is an orbital settlement that is barely populated, orbiting an ocean world. I suppose if it's not that well populated, it could be a good place to lay low, keep a low profile, I guess. Okay, so what's it look like? 77 is sprawling or dispersed structures. And we'll roll again. 9, built from organic materials. That's pretty weird. So what is this place? Now, how can an orbital station be built out of organic materials? Well, I'm going to say that it's not built from organic materials, but it definitely has an organic appearance. So, sprawling or dispersed structures. I think what we're looking at here, as Archer brings the eclipse to a halt, is an orbital space station. And it is comprised of dozens of units and some landing platforms maybe. And each one is connected by these long, delicate, narrow walkways. And every part of this station, nearly every single inch, is covered in this kind of mossy green lichen, which gives the impression that this station is made completely from organic matter. It's like completely overgrown. And I think it's only when Archer pulls the ship closer and he can kind of see the lights kind of shining from within that he realizes that this is actually a man-made structure, even though kind of nature is trying to reclaim it. And the Eclipse kind of does a couple of passes, and Archer is at a loss to figure out what this place is. And I'll be honest, I kind of am too. So maybe if we roll on the Settlement Project Oracle, that might tell us. So what is this place? What does it do? 21 is energy. Energy, okay. Could this be some kind of research station that is trying to like engineer some kind of like biofuel thing? And maybe it's kind of out of control and it kind of took over the station. I think that's good. I think, yeah, maybe Archer can see what like he can easily identify on kind of closer inspection as kind of research bays. Like, you know, he's been in and around kind of like scientific institutions. He knows kind of what they look like. And also maybe there's these, one of the units has got these kind of huge tanks attached, and he kind of figures out that must be what's powering the place, but it's also like where the highest concentration of this lichen is. It's kind of where it's like strongest. This is a very odd place. This is like nothing he's seen before. And I think that's when we're going to have someone hail the Eclipse. So, let's ask the Oracle, what is the first contact with this settlement like? 82. 82 is asking for help. So, here we go. What kind of shitstorm are we wading into now? Actually, there's a legit reason. There's a legit reason why this station might ask us for help specifically, because this is a research station, a scientific research station, and we've just arrived in a Griffin Institute ship, right? So we receive a hail, and quickly let's name this place first. So let's roll on the character name oracle. We'll take a character name. 47, Mihara. Okay, a voice comes over the comms and says, "This is Mihara Outpost. Are we sure glad to see you?" And Archer kind of looks at Luna sideways. And the voice continues, "Outbounder class vessel. Make your way to Dock 6. We'll meet you there." And Luna looks to Archer. She's still slightly perplexed. She can't figure out what the hell this place is, or why they might be so relieved to see the Eclipse. And she says, "Are you sure we'll be safe here?" And Archer says, "Absolutely not." And they swing the ship round towards Dock 6, and what they kind of are told on the scanners is Dock 6. It just looks like a wall of green moss, but it's only when they kind of approach that they see that it opens out into a small kind of hangar. And when I say small, it is small. It is barely big enough for the Eclipse to kind of squeeze in. The kind of landing gear comes down and makes contact with the floor. And it's a soft landing. It's cushioned by this carpet of moss that lines the entire hangar. Archer struggles to his feet. Every bone in his broken body is aching. He picks up his staff, and after a few kind of faltering steps, he realizes that he's going to need that staff to kind of stay upright. And Luna still has her Kraken clan grey woolen cloak, and I think I envision this more like a poncho, actually. Let's call it a poncho. I do like a good poncho. She's got that on, and she kind of slings the rifle that she took from Paxton Hold over her shoulder. And before I forget, I'm just going to do a quick retcon and say that when Luna was searching Paxton Hold for the medical supplies, I'm going to say that she also found the rest of Archer's kit and his pistol. And I'm going to say that she has already reunited him with those things. So that's that cleared up, just so you know. Archer holsters his pistol and kind of like with great difficulty pulls his satchel over his shoulder. And they both slip on their masks and head down towards the hold, with Griff trundling along beside them. The landing ramp descends, and they step out into the hangar. And it's really black pillowy underfoot. This strange kind of algae or moss or lichen or whatever it is has covered everything, like absolutely everything, all the equipment, everything. And it kind of seems to have this bioluminescence to it. Like as Archer looks back at his kind of footprints behind him, they seem to kind of be briefly kind of outlined in this kind of like pale blue before it kind of fades. And Archer looks back at the ship as well, and he can start to see the landing gear beginning to spot with these blossoms of kind of green algae before his eyes. But they keep walking towards what they think is the airlock. And they know it's the airlock when it slides open. And it kind of scrapes off these huge folds of this moss as it does. And they step inside, and the doors slide slowly closed behind them. And after a second, orange light in the airlock kind of blinks on and off before the doors ahead slide open. Archer and Luna step out, and they step out, and there's this immediate change underfoot as they kind of hear the metallic clank of the flooring beneath them. There's lighting running down the length of the corridor that they have just entered, and it's kind of flickering on and off sporadically. But it's kind of good enough and stays on enough for them to tell that whatever is growing outside the ship and in the hangar is not inside. And I think the other thing that happens is I think Archer instantly clocks that this place has a very weird vibe, like something is off here. It was weird from the outside, but there's definitely something not right inside. And after a moment of stood waiting, observing, they hear footsteps approaching from up ahead. And the flickering lights don't make it easy for them to kind of see who it is, but there appear to be 3 figures moving slowly towards them. And Luna kind of feels her hand edging towards the strap of the rifle, kind of ready to drop it off her shoulder, and if she needs to start firing, she'll be ready. And I think Archer can kind of sense her tension, kind of as he leans onto his staff. It's kind of keeping him up, and he's kind of hoping that if it does come to a fight, he kind of hopes that Luna's quicker on the draw than the others, because he does not have any energy left for any kind of conflict. And the figures get closer, and Archer can start to make them out more clearly. There are 3 of them. 2 of them are wearing helmets with heavy visors, making it impossible to kind of ascertain any details about their appearance. And they're both dressed in these kind of pale blue kind of flight suits, and each of the flight suits bears the name of the station, Mihara Outpost, and a logo, which is kind of this interlocking square design. And the third figure is not human at all. It's a droid, and it stands about 5 feet tall. It has a small body, kind of like barreled and boxy, and it has a pair of long arms that kind of fall straight down on either side. And this kind of weird boxy torso is stood atop a pair of spindly legs. At the center of its body, there's a pair of glowing pale green eyes that seem to be searching Archer and Luna. All three of the figures are holding bags, like kind of duffel bags, and all three of them drop the bags nearly kind of simultaneously at their feet. The figure at the front, we're going to call them researchers. The researcher at the front takes off their helmet. Pronouns: they, them. They step forward into the flickering light. Their eyes are bleary and reddened, and they've got pale, freckled skin that has this kind of sickly pallor. They look scared, and they look desperate. And they say, "You're not the rescue crew." Luna nervously looks towards Archer. She can see he's really struggling. She kind of feels her body tense and tighten. And the second researcher takes off their helmet. Some pronouns again. She, her. She looks every bit as scared. She's older, dark-skinned, with braided grey-white hair. She says, "If you're not the rescue crew, who are you?" Archer kind of attempts to take a step forward, but his head swims and he feels dizzy, he feels faint, and he can feel himself swaying before everything goes slow and woozy, and he crumples to the ground in a heap. And the older researcher rushes towards him, but in a flash, Luna has her rifle to her shoulder. She says, "Stay away from him, back off." And both researchers kind of hold up their hands whilst the droid is kind of watching quizzically on. And Luna says, "I mean it." And she's panicking, she's freaking out. And the older researcher, she kind of says softly with her hands still raised, "Your friend needs help. We can help him." But Luna's aim doesn't waver. And the other researcher says, "And we need a ship." And that's when the older one kind of snaps at the other. She says, "Shut up. You're not helping the situation." And then she turns back to Luna and says, "If you put the gun down, we can help. Then maybe you can help us. Just put the gun down." And Luna is now flicking her aim between all three of them. She doesn't know what to do. And I think that now, at this moment, we are going to roll and see what this station's problem is. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll on the Settlement Trouble Oracle. So what is going on here? 26. 26 is failing technology. Okay, so the lights flicker again, and then there is this almighty metallic groan, and the researchers kind of share like this instant look and then scramble to put their helmets on, and They do so seconds before the corridor that they're all stood in shakes violently and then rolls over, and everyone stood in it is thrown into the air. At the end of the corridor, Luna can see that it has clean broken away from the next unit along. And the lights flicker one more time as everyone hangs in the air, suspended in zero gravity. And she reaches out for Archer as he starts to drift away from her, and she manages to get a hand on his satchel strap. And then the gravity kicks in again briefly, and they all drop to the ground. And that's when Luna hears the younger researcher screaming at her, "Get us out of here, now!" And then everything goes black. The lights and the gravity go out for good. And Luna can feel herself, Archer held tightly in her arms, rising slowly off the floor. And she looks in every direction, and she starts to panic again. And then that's when she feels something. She feels something clamp onto her leg. Its grip is tight. Its grip is hard and metallic. She's so disorientated that she looks down to see two glowing, pale green eyes staring back up at her, followed by a soft, metallic voice that says, "We politely request the use of your vessel." Thank you, a million times thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like this video, subscribe if you have not done so already, and click that little bell icon to get notified whenever a new video drops. I'll be back next week, but until then, it is farewell and safe passage.